gotta find Wally. I'm gonna get him back. To infinity and beyond.
The Speed Force is a little bit of a crazy place.
Whatever hell Wally's trapped in, I'm gonna set him free.
Never the hero, huh, Barry? Not learning your lesson, Barry.
Leave while you still can.
Please. Every marathon has a finish line.
Holy crap, everybody, we gotta talk about this Flash footage. Let's break it down. There's a new Flash Ring giveaway going on now. All you have to do to enter, be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. So let's start this Black Flash Speed Force Wormhole Alien Therapy session. That's what happens every time Barry goes into the Speed Force. This is just like Runaway Dinosaur last year. He got turned into pure energy trying to reignite his Speed Force powers, got sucked into the Speed Force only to find out that he never really lost his powers to begin with. They got really meta with it. They did not explain the Speed Force at all. You almost come out of that episode knowing less about it than you knew going in, and that's kind of the point. They want to keep it really nebulous so they can use it as a story device however they want. But that's where the comics come in. So what they're doing here is sort of like a mix on the idea of Full Metal Alchemist, the law of equal exchanges. So Savitar is exchanged for Wally. Like Jay Garrick says, as the Black Flash is sort of like wrapping his fingers around Barry's throat, every marathon has a finish line. What he's talking about is Barry's death. So in the comics, I mean, the Speed Force has changed a lot depending on who's writing the comic book, but originally, like where most of this storyline's being taken from, the Mark Waid era, the Speed Force is where speedsters go when they die. It's their version of heaven. They become pure energy. So the finish line they're referring to is his death. Like, he will ultimately die. I know we all think about the future newspaper, Flash vanishes in crisis. It's almost like Barry's sacrificing himself to save everyone else. Like Savitar was calling him selfish, you're petty, you only think of yourself. So what is the most selfless thing you could do? You could give your life to save everyone else. That was one of his biggest regrets at the beginning of season 2, that Ronnie died giving himself to save them all. So what a coincidence that he's confronted with all the people who gave their lives selflessly to save everyone else, while Barry got to selfishly keep on living. So first we see Eddie. We know that he's back in this episode. He confronts Barry, although really it's a Speed Force wormhole alien confronting Barry with his own weaknesses. Then you see Ronnie. It's so awesome to see him back in the same episode. We knew he was coming back for a guest spot, but we didn't know how it was going to work. Now we know he's another character who gave his life selflessly so that everyone could live. In the baby that Caitlin is holding, that might be the baby that she was going to have with Ronnie had he lived. Because the whole theme here, like the common denominator, seems like people that died during season 1 so that Barry could go on being a hero. But now you have Savitar throwing that in his face, so that is probably a really big clue about Savitar's identity. In the fact that he was trapped in energy form and could only come out when someone replaced him, maybe that means that he is part Speed Force wormhole alien, and there are rules governing how they can exist in the real world. There are a lot of rules that the show seems to be setting up with this Savitar plotline. They haven't totally explained it yet, so I know a lot of you are asking if he is the future Flash from the comics because he keeps calling himself, I am the future Flash, but the punctuation and the phrasing that he's using is very ambiguous, so he could be talking about him just being the New World Order, or he could be a future version of somebody that we know right now, like Barry himself or Wally. But the real thing that threw us for a loop, that really like threw a wrench into the theory crafting, was when he said that he created himself. So like when Wally gets sucked in and he comes out, just the theories blew wide open. So there are a whole lot of comic book things that I could point to, but because it's all over the place, I don't want to speculate too much. But the whole thing from the Mark Waid era is Wally, because he was the main version of the Flash wearing the red costume during that era, realizing that if he were to achieve his full potential, like when they say that Wally's the fastest version of the Flash in the comics, in order to achieve that speed, he will effectively become one with the Speed Force and he won't be able to be with his friends anymore. So that probably has something to do with why Savitar seems like he's slower now that he is 100% physical in our universe. Like he existed as this energy Speed Force wormhole alien being and had limitless power, but now he's trapped in a physical vessel, so he's a little more beatable than he was before. But Barry is also getting better and better with each episode. So just remember that no matter how powerful Savitar started out, no matter how powerful he is now, Barry always gets more powerful with each new episode. Really, the biggest WTF blow the show could deliver is if it does like a big Daniel West twist where the Savitar costume is kind of like the Daniel West costume. So that was New 52. He was the brother of Iris West. Obviously, the TV show has not done a lot of that storyline. It's changed a bunch of the characters and the way their powers work. Daniel West still exists during Rebirth, but his costume just kind of grows out of him and makes him look kind of like a monster the way that Savitar does. So they're borrowing a lot of aesthetics from that, even if they're not doing the Daniel West character. But just remember how personal Savitar's vendetta against Barry is. It's not like they were just common enemies. Eobard Thawne is a lifelong enemy of Barry Allen. Savitar talks about him the same way that Eobard talks about him. And there aren't that many characters in the comics that have that personal relationship with Barry. Even Savitar in the comics was just like this big bad that they defeated and then he moved on. It really wasn't that personal. He hated the entire Flash family equally. But the Black Flash, I know a lot of you were asking questions about that because that does look like his glove. It could be Zoom because there are two characters that wear black costumes. There's Zoom, and then there is the version of Zoom that became the Black Flash that has the claws instead of gloves. Like, it has this really freakish look to it. So this could be one of those two people, but it just seems like Barry is facing his demons in the form of his friends and his foes. So I will go on record as saying that the only person that I am 99% sure that Savitar is not is Eddie. I think of all the people that we know now that could potentially become Savitar in the future, it's not Eddie. It would have to be somebody who's already a speedster. So you're talking about Jay Garrick, you're talking about Wally, and it just feels like if you're going to be picking between those two, then it would be much more meaningful to make Wally the speedster. And I'm not even 100% that they would drag Wally through the mud in that way. It feels like Savitar could be somebody that we've never met before, but because of the way he exists beyond space and time in the Speed Force, that sort of sews up the logic because Jay Garrick told us the story that Savitar is supposedly the first person to be granted speed via the Philosopher's Stone. So that means that he was a speedster before Jay Garrick was a speedster. But because John Wesley Shipp said that his character, Jay Garrick, has been the Flash for 25 plus years, that would make Savitar very old. So just remember, there are a lot more questions for the show to answer, so they'll continue to tease stuff out, especially once we learn more about what's up with the metal of his suit. That's probably going to provide the biggest clues of all. But for those of you asking about Flash Rebirth stuff, I do totally think they could have a Wally West returning Flash Rebirth style twist whereby he manifests out of the Speed Force. If you haven't read the Rebirth story arc, what happened is that pre-Flashpoint Ginger Wally West was retconned by New 52 into African-American Wally West. In the comics, sort of walked that back, saying that Ginger Wally West never really died, he was just sucked into the Speed Force and then finally made his way out, but because he didn't have a tether, he wasn't able to manifest physically. So his tether became Barry Allen. Barry had to remember him in order for him to come back. So it was this really trippy twist. So expect a version of that on the Flash TV show. They'll get him out eventually. Like, they're not going to leave him stranded in there, but he might be stuck for a little while, and I'll be interested to see if they're able to get him out by the end of this next episode. Anytime something really big and crazy like that happens, they usually take it back pretty quickly. Like when Barry got sucked into the Speed Force, he was back by the end of the next episode. So I'm not expecting Wally to be stuck in there too long. But what'll happen is because there's so many comic book things that they could be pulling from, I'll wait till the next episode to do Easter eggs and just talk about specific concepts. But if there are any bonus videos you guys want me to do, like Savitar as the potential blue future Flash, then I'll do that this weekend. While you wait for that, you can click here for my Flash episode with all the Easter eggs, and you can click here to learn all about the Star Wars trailer that they screened this morning. Thank you so much for watching. Let's high five. I'll see you guys in the next video.